G'day, I'm Arjay Martin, the Great Australian Party, or GAPS, lead Senate candidate for the state of Queensland. So I'm doing these videos to answer your questions, and please send me more, even though time's running out, the election's in a day and a half, but, send me your questions anyway, and I'll try and answer them via video so that other people know where I personally stand and my personal beliefs on those topics. So I've been getting questions about what religion I am. I'm a Protestant Christian. If that makes a difference to you or not, perhaps it does, because people are affected by all of their upbringing, etc. So also just answering some related questions. There's someone asking me about my thoughts on the traditional opening of Parliament with a Christian prayer. So I'm not against that. If people don't want to participate because they aren't Christians or whatever, then they don't have to. That's simple. If you don't like it, don't do it. So I just quickly check something as well. Another interesting thing is Australia is actually a Christian country, even though people deny it. It's even within our constitution, which I'll just quickly try and find. And yeah, you need the context of how Australia was formed and about, the Catholic Protestant wars, etc. So within the so-called covering clauses, which aren't actually covering clauses, they're actually the first, how can I put it? So the entirety of the Constitution is actually 9 sections long, plus the schedule is within section 9, and what a lot of people consider the Constitution is just really section 9 minus the Constitution of the Commonwealth shall be as follows. So if we go look at the preamble, it says, whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania, humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, and in context, there's one God and it's actually a Protestant Christian God, get to heaven via Jesus and following the rules rather than going through the church or something like that. So then it goes on, but the point is that, and then it goes on about the Lord's spiritual and temporal and commons, which is in the UK. Lord's spiritual, what do you think that refers to? That refers to the Protestant Christian religious people that are a part of the House of Lords in the UK. And that's like our Senate, but as far as I'm aware, they still haven't changed it. They do actually vote for any of the Lords. They're appointed by the government. And that's how our upper houses used to be. And, I may as well bring up about the Queensland State Parliament as well. So I did answer this in a video with Paul Capacasa with his COCAO, I think it is, Cacao News. But in Queensland, we used to have an upper and lower house for the state government. In 1917, there was a referendum to abolish that. And at the time, people didn't actually vote for the upper house. They were just appointed by, the governor or whatever. And people voted against that. So the will of the people was to keep both houses of parliament. Arguably, every law that has been passed since it was dissolved by the Labor government in 1922 in the state of Queensland has been invalid and illegal ultra vires, because besides it going against the will of the people, which was determined in 1917 with the referendum, and it was a failed referendum to get rid of the upper house, then in 1922 the Labor government just went ahead and made the upper house abolish itself. So there's a couple of times when they tried passing law that the upper house would be abolished, and because Labor didn't control the upper house, which was a good thing. The upper house is supposed to provide balance and be a safeguard against the lower house abusing things. But what the Labor government did was they just increased the amount of senators, so therefore they just appointed a whole bunch of Labor people, and then they passed a law that the upper house would be abolished, and the upper house was stacked with Labor people, voted to abolish itself. And since then, in Queensland, for the state government, arguably it is a legal government and they have no authority to pass any legislation. Also, besides the will of the people, there was also the case that it is a defining characteristic of the Westminster political system that you have bicameral or two-chambered parliament. So a lower and an upper house, they don't have that, haven't since 1922, therefore it isn't actually really even a parliament. But that is another little side issue, but it was interesting and it made me think of it when talking about the Lords in the UK. So, the Constitution itself mentions God as Almighty God, and specifically with the historical context, it means the Protestant version of God. So Australia is really a Christian country, despite what people claim. And, if they are people that should know better that claim that we're not a Christian country, then, apparently they must be doing it as a bad thing, like they're doing a bad thing, they're lying to you, and that's wrong. So with that being said, then Christian prayer to start Parliament, it's okay. And as I said, if people don't want to participate in it, then so be it. So support of the National Chaplaincy Program. So that is where the federal government is paying religious people to support school students, basically as a religious-based counsellor. So arguably that is unconstitutional. There have been court cases about it where they didn't determine that, but that's beside the point. Really, the government, there should be a separation of government and church, and you shouldn't be using government money to fund particular counsellors. And it makes more sense having chaplains in religious schools, paid for by the religious schools, even though they're getting money from the government anyway, but having that rather than chaplains in regular schools. That, I don't think that schools should be about indoctrinating people religiously. But if people want to send their kid to a religious school, then, of course they're going to have chaplains or priests or whatever you want to call them as guidance counsellors, that kind of thing. So I may as well just go on with some other points in this particular email. So extension of the state's ban on X-rated pornography to the ACT and the Northern Territory. I think that is a silly thing. I believe in freedom of expression, and there should be safeguards that little children don't access such pornography. But we've got the internet now, so people can just go to one of many free sites and see all the X-rated pornography they want. So what's the point of banning it in the ACT and Northern Territory? It's kind of stupid. Again, like I said about the Christian prayer, if you don't like X-rated pornography, don't watch it. Simple. And if you do like it, then you can watch it, so long as no one's being raped or something like that in it. So provisions of a default clean feed internet to filter out porn. I don't believe in the government censoring the internet, and I appreciate that my previous two answers for these two sub-questions are probably not going to be appreciated by the questioner, but I'm just being honest about my particular opinion. I think we need more honesty in politics. There's a joke where I think it was a Charlie Brown one, and they've got, say, Charlie asking Lucy, do all fairy tales begin with once upon a time? And then Lucy says, no, sometimes they begin with, if I'm elected, I promise ... I don't know if that's even just like a meme made out of Charlie Brown or Peanuts, as it's also called, or if that was an actual one. It's pretty clever, and I agree with that. Also, there's an argument many years ago with the people involved, like the electronic, what's it called? EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, about internet censorship. And let's try and get back here. And an argument was that the whole point of the NBN broadband was to increase the speed of the internet significantly so that the government could bring in a clean feed internet filter or firewall to filter out, and they use the excuse of bad criminal things, but really inevitably gets used on normal people who have a dissenting opinion. I did do a speech, like a little mini speech in one of these videos on freedom of religion, or freedom of speech, I should say, sorry, that the whole point of freedom of speech isn't to protect non-controversial views, it's to protect controversial views, because no one's going to complain about uncontroversial things as a simplified thing. Or if they did, then the courts or anti-discrimination boards or whomever would just throw it out. So the person also wants to know about freedom of speech, e.g. particularly around LGBTQIP, whatever acronym, issues. So, people should be able to express their ideas so long as that doesn't defame people or call for, violence against people unnecessarily. Of course, the government would call for violence against people, just say if we're being physically invaded by a declared war, that kind of thing. But people should be able to criticize what they want. As I just said, it's dissenting opinion that is what needs to be protected by free speech. And if you don't protect that, then you don't have free speech at all. So, this person should be able to say X, Y, Z, and this person should also be able to say, well, you're stupid for believing X, Y, Z. Or, I disagree with your opinion, something like that. So that will do for this particular video. And please like, share, subscribe, comment below. Consider donating your time, money to buy some more ads, pay for expenses like flyer production, how to vote production, that kind of thing. And have an excellent day.